Hey friends, welcome back to another Wellness Wednesday video. I expect this one will be pretty quick. It's just going to be a quick update on how I'm doing with my SIBO testing and all of that stuff. I don't really have any big topics that I have to talk about, so I do expect it'll be pretty quick. So this morning, actually, I did my SIBO breath test and I packaged it all up and sent it off to the lab. So I should get those results within a week. So hopefully by next week, I'll be able to share the results with you. So I had to do the whole prep diet the day before, also, be off of my Reuteri yogurt for at least 2 weeks ahead of time. Did all that. It was a lot of stuff that I wasn't excited to do, but I did get it done. I'm very thankful to be finished with it. And then also yesterday morning, I did the inulin test from Dr. Davis using the Air 2 device. That's a breath tester that tests hydrogen and methane, because moving forward, I really would like to avoid doing the lab SIBO tests from now on. Since I have this breath tester that tests methane and hydrogen, it's like I don't feel like I should have to spend the money on the test every time I need to retest, but I just needed a really good baseline with the Air 2 using the inulin test that Dr. Davis lays out. So I did that yesterday morning. So I actually started the prep diet the day before. So I did the prep diet for 2 days, which was not fun, not an enjoyable prep diet. I really do enjoy my regular diet. And so when I have to restrict myself from my regular diet, I just don't enjoy it. And I'm happy I don't have to live that way all the time, but I endured through those 2 days. I did the inulin test yesterday morning, early in the morning. And I have that for my baseline for the future. And then this morning I did the lactulose test from the lab, but at the same time as I did that, I also was testing on my Air 2, and I'm really curious when I get the results back from the lab how they're going to line up, because they are testing the same thing, hydrogen and methane, and giving you like a parts per million measurement. And so I blew into the little thing with the tube that collects your breath for the lab. And then right after, I blew into the Air 2, and I have all of my Air 2 data written down. So it'll be really interesting to see how well those correlate. But I thought I'd go ahead and share the Air 2 data since it's kind of interesting. So what Allison Seebecker says, and she's the one that I'm, kind of following with the protocol that I chose, the antimicrobial protocol. She's a SIBO expert, and what she says is that a 4-week antimicrobial round will, on average, reduce your gas numbers of hydrogen by about 30 parts per million. And mine was 79 parts per million on my original test. And since mine was so high, I went ahead and did 6 weeks of the antimicrobials instead of just the 4, which she says is good if you do have that high of a gas level. So anyways, I wasn't expecting to get a negative SIBO diagnosis at this point. The expectation is that it would have reduced my gas by about half, around 30, maybe a little more, because I did do the full 6 weeks instead of 4. So what I did was I took my original test with the graph, I printed it off, and then I went and just did a new line of all of my numbers that I got from doing the breath test this morning. So I took my lactulose solution. You do one test before, so that's your baseline, and then you drink your lactulose solution, and then you test every 20 to 30 minutes after that for 3 hours. So I got all of my data written down here, and it's just easier to see if I put it on the graph. So here we go. The blue is my original test from, that was about 8 weeks ago now, because I did the full 6 weeks of the antimicrobials, and then I had to wait 2 weeks before I took the test this morning. So it's been about 8 weeks ago that this was my result. And this morning, as long as the Air 2 is accurate, this is my test result from today. So obviously there is a big difference, and I'm very happy with that. When I started testing, I got the exact same starting number that I got the first time, 2 parts per million. And then I got a little bit higher than the original. And then I got quite a bit higher than the original. And so at this point I was like, oh no, like, am I in a worse place than I was before? Because it was this high when, originally at, what was that? 40 minutes it was there. But then it just kind of flatlined for the next 3 tests. And so it ended up, so the way that they calculate hydrogen SIBO and say if you're positive or not only has to do with the test at 90 minutes. So you see down here, it says hydrogen increase over baseline by 90 minutes. And so last time I was at 79 over baseline because I was 81 and I started at a 2. So I was 79 over baseline on my original test. On my test from this morning, I was 41 over baseline at that 90-minute mark. So that is definitely a big decrease, and it's almost exactly what Alison Seebecker said it would be. I mean, it's a little bit more than the 30 parts per million. So far, I mean, she's right on point with her recommendations and her info. But of course, like I said, it'll be really interesting to see the lab report come back and see if it correlates with the Air 2 device. So that's the hydrogen. I tested positive both for hydrogen and for methane. And for methane, the method of diagnosis is a little bit different. You do the whole 3-hour test, and if you get above 10 parts per million at any point in the test, that's a positive result. So last time I got as high as 12 at 2 hours. I got as high as 10 at 90 minutes. So I did get up to that 10. It says greater than 10 would be a positive result. So getting that 12 at 2 hours was considered a positive. And then, so for my test this morning, I got up to 11 parts per million at 60 minutes. So that would still be considered a positive for methane. It was pretty similar to my original. So my hydrogen went down quite a bit at that 90-minute mark, but my methane looks about the same, maybe a little bit less. But it is interesting how the hydrogen and methane kind of play against each other. The methane actually eats the hydrogen gas, and so the balance can just really change. It's not just a plus and minus type deal. It is confusing. So anyways, the methane is not gone as far as the Air 2 test. And so I will still be, if I do another antimicrobial round, I will be including the antimicrobials for methane because it seems like that has not been taken care of yet. And then the hydrogen definitely have made a lot of progress, and I would hope that with one more round, I mean, I'm still at 41 parts per million above baseline. And if you reduce at least around 30 parts per million per round, I may not be able to get a clear SIBO-free diagnosis by the end of one more round. Might take 2, which is frustrating to think about. But anyways, so that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm waiting to see the result from the lab and compare that. But so far, it's been encouraging. It's been really, really hard for me to tell as far as with my symptoms if I'm getting better. And part of it is because I didn't have terrible symptoms to begin with, partly because I had already adjusted my diet to a place where I was controlling my symptoms. So I have, been working for years trying to figure out what foods I need to avoid in order to keep my symptoms down and have my digestion work well. And so I've already done that. I already had my diet down to that place. So my symptoms weren't out of control for sure. The main symptom that I have been worrying about and that I really, really want to get fixed is the inability to absorb iron. That is just my number one thing. Like, I can handle digestive issues. They're not severe for me. They never have been severe. I mean, I'm not going to say no to better digestion. That's great. But as far as, how I feel, it's like, I'm doing fine. as far as my digestion goes. So that's not like the biggest priority for me. So what I am really going to be keeping an eye on now, and then of course after I'm able to get that SIBO-free diagnosis, is to see if getting that taken care of allows me to absorb iron and to keep my iron levels at a good place without extreme supplementation. After I had my iron infusion, I got tested at 6 weeks and was at 130, and then I got tested 6 weeks later, which was just pretty recently, and I was down to 91, so it was dropping really fast. And so it'll be interesting to see when I do get this SIBO eradicated, if I'm able to keep my iron at a good place. Because with the amount of red meat that I eat and iron-rich foods that I eat, plus the supplementation that I'm doing, I should be able to keep my iron stores super high. So I will just be keeping an eye on that. And as I see my iron levels, staying high or increasing, there will be a point at which I, reduce down my supplementation, and then hopefully my body will be able to actually absorb the stuff that I'm getting better, so that I don't have to do so much of that supplementation. So again, it's still just like a wait and see. Wait and see what the lab says as far as the SIBO test. Wait and see how I'm doing with keeping my iron stores up. I'm going to wait until I get my lab test back, which last time it took around a week, I think, maybe a little bit less. So I'm going to wait until then to decide if I want to jump into another round of antimicrobials. I definitely am going to start taking the L-Reuteri yogurt. I already had some this morning, which I was super excited about. Dr. Davis also has a SIBO yogurt that has 3 different strains of probiotics, including the L-Reuteri, plus 2 more. And I'm going to be taking all 3 of those. I've fermented all of those separately into yogurts, and then I've also fermented them all together into his SIBO yogurt. And so I'm going to be incorporating that. That really helped with my digestion before, so I'm hoping that that will happen again. It'll be interesting to see if it does happen again, because before it's like my digestion just turned around within 48 hours of starting to take it. And then I had to stop taking it. I felt like my digestion got worse. And so it'll be kind of like redoing the experiment now to add it back in and see what my digestion does, to see if it really is the yogurt or the L-Reuteri that's having such a beneficial effect on my digestion. So I've still got about a week before I decide if I'm going to do the antimicrobials. If I do another round of antimicrobials, I'll probably do the oregano, and then I have to go in and look and see what the other option was for methane SIBO, because I was thinking I was going to do the oregano and neem if my methane was under control, but it doesn't look like it is from the Air 2 test. So I'm going to go and see if there's another option besides the one I just used for the methane, and do that along with the oregano, and do a round of that and just see where I'm at after that. But until then, I'm just going to be going back to my baseline diet, which is pretty meat-based ketovore with all of the yogurts added, trying to get my probiotics up. Taking antimicrobials is not as destructive to your gut flora as taking pharmaceutical antibiotics, but they do have an effect on your good bacteria as well. So it's been really important to me to load up on the probiotics and repopulate with all the good things. You don't want to clear out everything and then just let whatever's around take over. You want to purposely put in all the good guys. And so that's what I'm doing with all the different yogurts from Dr. Davis and from his Super Gut book. And I'm just going to be continuing to do my iron supplements, continuing to eat healthy foods that do well with my body, which is primarily meat, but then also some other additions, which makes my diet ketovore and not carnivore. Few vegetables here and there, things like coconut oil, coconut milk, some plant foods like that are still pretty keto, but would take you out of the classification of carnivore. Anyways, that is what is going on with me. I'll be back next week with the lab results, hopefully, and just continue to bring you along on this journey. It is definitely a journey, and I do really appreciate this place where I get to share with you guys about what I'm doing and just the steps along the way. Of course, this is never meant to be medical advice or anything like that. I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist or a scientist or anything except just a person. And I just enjoy sharing my own journey. If it's helpful to you, that's great. If it's just entertainment, that's great too. Take whatever's helpful and leave whatever is not. And I'm just going to leave it there for Wellness Wednesday today. I hope you guys are doing very well, and I will see you again in the next video.